So this particular podcast episode has been brought to you by the Micaville Outpost.
Hi, I'm Noah Stiles. This is Micaville Outpost in Micaville, North Carolina. We are kind of the unofficial welcome center for this part of the Blue Ridge Parkway and Mount Mitchell. We are absolutely a haunted general store, museum, art gallery. You can get anything from snacks to amazing artwork to stickers, moon pies, you name it, we have it, including lots and lots of ghost stories and folklore. So come see us.
You're listening to CreepGeeks Podcast. So it begins again. Welcome back to the podcast. This is Season 8, Episode 315.
Brown Mountain Lights Survey, Micaville Outpost, TrumpCON, Night Owls Are Superior, and Celeb Paranormal.
Yeah, welcome. I'm Greg.
I'm Omi.
And here we go. So here we are. Welcome back to the podcast. If this is your very first time tuning into the podcast, we're very glad to have you here. And if you're here, like always, we very much appreciate you. Yeah. So we do have some things to talk about in the particular podcast that we're going to be giving you right now because we're givers. And I will be honest, some of it is subjects and things that are a little aggravating and I don't really want to talk about on the podcast, but we're going to do it anyway for two reasons. Everybody does it, right? And probably should. So
okay.
There you go. But before we get into that, there's a couple different ways you can get a hold of us if you'd like to interact with the podcast. You can do Patreon, which is pretty cool. We try to get there and put stuff up when we have it, and we also, let's just put it this way, when I'm aware there's things to see, I check it out.
Oh.
But yeah, honestly, I probably should check it every single day, but there's too many things to check, man. And they changed their logo. It looks like a weird kidney bean thing. It's weird. It's like, what happened to the P, man? P for Patreon. They said a K for kidney bean. But yeah.
Baked bean.
Yeah, baked beans. Okay, so patrons, there are some interesting things on the Patreon to look at. One of which was something that came about by way of a free craft class. We got to learn leather, right? And we were presented with the geological survey on the Brown Mountain Lights investigation from the 70s.
Yeah.
So I, like any good investigative researcher, pulled out my phone and started snapping scans right quick. I will admit, Mason looked a little alarmed for a second, because I'm sitting there blasting away, but I think you're supposed to pay for scans, and I did not. I don't know if that's how that works.
You can, as a library member, you have X amount of prints and scans for free. Anything past that, it's literally like 37 cents or something. I'm probably wrong.
Well, I'll give them $2 because I'm not a member.
Okay.
So
I am.
Well, then you give them $2 because I'm not a member.
Okay.
No, it's pretty cool. You should definitely check it out. It's old school, and it's actually what the government thinks the Brown Mountain Lights is.
Yeah.
And if you're unfamiliar with the Brown Mountain Lights and Brown Mountain, the mountain in North Carolina, basically right outside of Marion, these weird anomalous lights have been showing up since what could be the 1800s. So the initial theory that came about with the geological survey and other surveys that it's just car lights or trains didn't make any sense when it's been reported instances of the Brown Mountain Lights since the early 1800s.
Yes, before the rail lines were through certain
Before
sections.
cars were a thing.
Yeah.
So it is pretty cool to see, and it's something I've never seen before in any instance or reference to the Brown Mountain Lights. I've never seen that.
I've seen reference to it, but that's it.
I mean, seen it with your own two eyeballs.
Like reading other people's dissertations or analysis of the Brown Mountain Lights. That thing is referred to, but rarely dug into. Right. So, yeah.
So that's pretty neat. And we also have some pictures and a long copyright-filled music video about Micaville Outpost, which we're going to talk about in this particular podcast. So,
yeah.
I don't know why I didn't think about it, but I didn't. But according to Patreon, I have 500 hours that I can upload videos, which I might have to utilize some of that, right? What do you think? So if you'd like to get a hold of the podcast, you can call us. We have a toll-free phone number that you can use.
That phone number is going to be 575-208-4025.
You can hit us up on Patreon if you look for CreepGeeks. Facebook is also CreepGeeks. Instagram is CreepGeeks. TikTok is CreepGeeks. Basically, anywhere you find us, it's going to be CreepGeeks. That's how you do that, right?
CreepGeeks Pod for a lot of them.
Yeah, but when you start typing out, as long as you get creep right and then geeks, it starts to fill in pretty easily. It's like, oh, did you mean? I mean, we only have like 300 plus episodes. So it seems like eventually that sort of fixed itself as far as, not being able to be seen, I guess. Yep. So that's pretty neat. Let me move my podcast notes, because everything we talk about in the CreepGeeks podcast is available on our website. If you go to creepgeeks.com, and you'll find all the links and all the stuff that we reference and mention, so you can do research at your leisure. So let's talk real quick about the Brown Mountain Lights and not really give a whole lot away, all right?
Okay.
So the origin of the Brown Mountain Light in North Carolina, the Geological Survey Circular, number 646 is what we're actually talking about. And this came out and was put out, I guess, by George Rogers Mansfield.
Okay.
And this came out in 1971, and it's through the Department of Interior, and it's a reference guide, so you can't check it out from the library or anything like that. And it talks about the Brown Mountain Lights. And it lists a little thing, there's little sections to it, and it says, in this Blue Ridge County of Western North Carolina, the stage and setting for the intermittent performance of the mysterious lights that have evoked legend and song since the beginning of the century in 1922, which we know it's earlier than that, right? Mm-hmm. And it basically goes through and talks about the conclusions that Mansfield came up with and some of the investigations and how the phenomenon was reported and some basic interview type information. So it was released to the press in 1972. Yep, it's pretty interesting. But it's got this old school green cover to it. It's all old looking, right? Yeah. It's kind of got that old, like you really found something. Like if you found that in a secret filing cabinet somewhere, you're like, oh my God, I got something. It's like all X-Files looking. It
is way different than the version that you may find on Amazon sometimes.
Yeah.
So this is like definitely Department of the Interior type old schooly document. So
yeah, it's all government-like, which is pretty nice, right?
Yeah.
So I've got about 5 or 6 pages actually scanned in there, and there's a map, the old map from 1971 that shows where the Brown Mountain Lights are located and possible viewing areas to actually see the Brown Mountain Lights. That's actually page number 3, so they kind of lay it out there right at you, which is pretty cool. And then, of course, the rest of it has some eyewitness interviews / testimony, and then has a couple little thoughts in it. So I'm not going to give it away, but it's a pretty neat document. I will go back and give them their $2 and actually do a better job scanning so I can turn it into a better PDF. Because right now,
it is a single scroll PDF.
It's the only way I could do it without going, okay, let me make 10 individual pictures. It's like I did a single scroll, and you can look at it and peruse at your leisure. But later on, I'll go back and actually make it better. But I did this early in the morning. I couldn't figure it out. I'm like, why can't I do this? Because it was on my phone. That's why I couldn't do it. So evidently iPhones don't play well with anybody about anything ever. It's always a convoluted way. It's like, hey, iPhone, can you reach right next to you and hand me the salt? Sure can. And then it gets up and you have to run around the entire store or restaurant or wherever you're at and then take the salt, right? Even though you're right next to the person, and run back around the store again and then hand it to them, only to find out you put the salt, gave it to, it's a frustrating thing.
Okay.
Yeah. But it kind of is what it is, I guess, when it comes to that sort of thing. All right. So moving into the podcast, we do want to talk about what actually seems to be the talk still, a couple different things, but this happened a while ago. And by a while, I don't mean very long. But, you're pointing at something. You have it highlighted.
Yeah.
I almost forgot to talk about it.
Oh, okay.
All right, we're going to talk about it anyway. Recently, I rewatched Jodie Foster's Contact.
Uh-huh.
Because there were some people in there. You had Matthew McConaughey and Jodie Foster, Tom Skerritt, like some relatively famous people back in the day. And I didn't know this was a Stephen Zemeckis film. Is it Stephen Zemeckis?
Robert Zemeckis.
Robert Zemeckis film. Because it was pretty good. And the only reason why I think that movie became much, much better than the last time I watched it is because we actually went to the VLA, a very large array in New Mexico, and took a tour. You remember that?
Yes.
And we found out that the one thing that they don't want to hear in the tour is anything related to Jodie Foster. Right? Because if you ask, they get super mad about it because I asked, and that lady shot fire at me. She was so angry.
She was also very angry over pictures.
Yeah, like, don't take any pictures. It's like, you just want me to walk around and memorize this? You're blinking real hard trying to save it as a memory. It doesn't work. Because when you go, hey, where's Ellie at? Oh, she got super heated.
Yeah.
That's just a movie. Well, of course it's a movie. If she made first contact and had 18 hours of footage, right, static, we want to see it, right? And that's where we actually seen a real atomic clock, not just the mythical atomic clock that you get the date from, but like that clock is powered by atomicness, like batteries and stuff. Remember that?
Yes.
And they're like, you can't really go in there and touch it, but then they let us go in there and touch it.
Yeah.
It's kind of a weird thing.
But no taking pictures.
Don't take pictures of it. It's just a big cube. It looks like it weighs about 700 pounds. It was pretty heavy duty, right?
Yeah.
And at the time, I think there was 28 large-scale telescopes that moved on rails that could be moved around and adjusted to create a very large array that could put all those individual satellite dishes that are very large all together to make one large array.
Fun fact, during the movie, they only moved a couple of them and then digitally rendered the rest for that one scene.
Probably because of that lady.
She like quit moving stuff around.
She's like, just angry about the whole thing.
Yeah. Now there are ways to actually configure them into a specific array or specific direction, but it requires a lot of work. And they're on like little railroad tracks, so if you look at the movie, they're very close together. And
in real life, they are not. They are
not
huge.
Yeah.
And the cool thing is that they typically do these tours for free, and they have a very specific time, and they have a very specific number of slots to fill for the tour. And when we pulled up, right, they said, "Are you so-and-so?" I didn't hear what the lady said, so I just said yes. And she said, "Hurry up." And then we piled out of the van and went there to go take the tour. And I think we may have inadvertently took somebody else's spot. It's all blame on Dennis. So if Dennis is listening to the podcast, you know what you did. But it was a good experience overall, and the movie was actually better simply because in the scenes where she's running around trying to determine if the noise coming from outer space, the signal, the radio frequency was an actual signal, we went through all of that.
Yeah.
And around the back, if you have a chance to go, there is a sort of celestial artwork set up where there's a number of posts in kind of Raiders of the Lost Ark style. The sun will hit at a certain angle and tell you what time it is, and benefactors and all sorts of things like that. It's a really neat experience. So if you ever leave Carlsbad Caverns and you're in New Mexico and you're like, we're about 80, 90 miles away from the VLA, you should go. And don't be surprised if your cell phone doesn't work, because cell phone signals and things like that can interrupt
the
what they're trying to do.
tours are not free unless you go on specific days.
Well, we were there on a specific day.
Or, because there's a lot of caveats, if you're with a special interest group or educational group and your name got called on a Saturday between 10 a.m. and 12 p.m. or 2 p.m.
I think that was us.
Yeah, we accidentally.
Yeah. Well, we are a special. We're special. We're the CreepGeeks Podcast.
But we bought T-shirts and we, so.
You did.
Yeah.
I did not. You know why? They don't have adult man sizes.
Otherwise, it's approximately $10 to go.
Okay, so is it worth $10? Yes.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
$8 if you're military or senior. Yeah.
Yes. It was worth it.
Yeah.
And plus, you can take some really great looking pictures.
Gosh, yeah.
So it was fun. So we tied that into the podcast for two reasons. Because I watched it again, it was great, but it also tied into our previous podcast where we talked about SETI receiving a large $30+ million grant in order to do things. So it makes sense because that was the entire thing. What Jodie Foster did in First Contact was what SETI does, is look for extraterrestrial signals coming from outer space. So that was pretty spiffy. All right, so speaking of coming from outer space, we went to Micaville Outpost in North Carolina, right? Because it seemed like a neat place to go because I've seen a couple of pictures and it talked about like different things, Appalachian lore. Some of the pictures it showed looked like Mothman and Bigfoot and shadow people and stuff. And all these like little artsy pieces all around it. And I'm like, and it looks like an old general store. Yeah. And I'm like, we need to go.
And me being in tourism, I've had at least 3 people recommend I go.
Yes.
So,
so we decided to take a ride up there, and we took a little shortcut and went down a dusty road, whatever, tested tires and that sort of thing. Went through a single lane underpass, which is pretty neat.
Yeah.
What?
It's should I name the road?
Yeah, because I don't remember what it is.
Peppers Creek Road.
Yeah, the shortcut was Peppers Creek Road. Now, I have to say it sort of turns into gravel. And if you've seen a Subaru commercial where they're going down the road and you're like, any car could do that, so can you. That's what kind of road it is. You should be fine. As long as you keep up momentum.
So along with like a single pass-through little bridge area, there's some old railroad tracks with some tunnels that you are not supposed to go into. There's 2 different pull-off points with... one has hiking trails, the other has a small waterfall. It's a very and a interesting-looking tiny church along there. So, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And a much more interesting ride than going up some of the scary roads to get to how we would get to Micaville.
Yes. Yeah. Now, so far as what I know, there's not really a whole lot of reason to go to Micaville unless you're looking for mining type situations and maybe some gems and minerals. But if you're looking for some reason to go to Micaville or a reason to go to the outpost, just go. It's worth it. The store itself used to be Micaville Mining's general store.
Yeah.
So back in the olden days, when the mine people got paid, they would go to the general store and they would get some stuff. So it's a really old building. It has water on 2 sides, running water on 2 sides, which sort of feeds the energy there. Right. The owner is very nice, very gracious, more than happy to talk about all the curios that they have, like curiosity type things.
Yeah.
And some of the ghost type stuff that may or may not be going on and haunted objects. So effectively, when you go to this place, if you're paranormally minded at all, you can spot the interesting things that you want to pay attention to, and you could possibly do your own little mini walk around ghost investigation. And the cool thing is he'll tell you all about it.
Yeah.
Because as soon as we pulled in, we couldn't find a parking space. We were unaware that we could actually park at the church. So there's a church next to it. You can park there.
And there's
as soon as we got out, he came cruising out, and he was like looking at the van. He was like, "Oh, sweet." So,
yeah. Well, he has a little sign, but we didn't see it from the direction. I guess we were either going too fast or we didn't slow down.
Yeah, because you're at a crossroads at that place too. So it's kind of a thing. But
and the sign says, "Yes, park at the church. You won't like combust or something like that."
No, you won't be smoked.
Oh, smoked.
Like
yeah,
smited.
And you were saying that. Going to Micaville, there's actually a lot to do because Micaville is basically within Burnsville.
Okay, so there's not a lot of stuff that I would want to do.
Including the allegedly spooky New Ray Hotel, and there's a Bear Dark Sky Observatory up there.
Okay, I stand corrected.
And a whole bunch of art galleries, but yeah.
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 So, it was a good time. I really enjoyed myself. I did experience a couple things that happened there.
Yeah.
The big one, well, there was a couple different little minor things. It made my head buzz a little bit. I got all sweaty, which is not uncommon for being a big fat guy in a store with no AC.
Yeah.
We were talking about one of the dolls because I want people to go. I don't want to necessarily give anything away, but one of the dolls would mess with people's cameras, with phones, all sorts of things. And when we got there, I broke out a little action camera, and I looked at it. We recorded 4 minutes with that action camera before we ever started to do anything, before I ever even got to it. And it said I had over 5 hours left. It was like 4 hours and 57 minutes of record time. And I made little clips when we were in there, got to the very end, started talking to him about the doll. And it basically said, card full, no power, and turned off.
Okay.
And I was like, maybe it got hot. Because heat can cause cameras to act strange. Yeah. And it was not hot because I would do a quick clip and turn it off. Because that's the way I do it. I do a clip, turn it off, and keep going. So that was pretty strange. There is a curiosity cabinet that has all sorts of cool stuff in there, like the beef liver that was found in the fireplace, because that's something that happens with some of the traditional folklore. Yeah. If you're trying to protect yourself from witches. I was getting crazy EMF readings off that thing.
A death portrait is in there.
That's the one that gave us one of the highest readings, because walking through the store, nothing. Get right up to that thing, and this is like my little meter was like, this is dangerous, dangerous. And it was like, oh.
So Micaville does have some items from Broughton Hospital. And if you know anything about paranormal history in North Carolina, the Broughton Hospital / Asylum is one of the most haunted places in our particular region. And Pepper did not want anything to do with anything Broughton Hospital.
Yeah. Pepper takes a ride with us a lot of times, and she really didn't want.
Would not pose in front of it, would not stand near it, actually kind of tugged me away so that some other nice people would pet her and take her away from it. Yeah, she was not having it. I tried to pose her near that, and
there may or may not be ghost tours that occur. It kind of depends.
So
really delicious soda, which is like
goodness.
a artisan soda, which is super tasty. Came in a can, but it was fantastic. I was like, wow, this is great. They are dog friendly.
Yep.
And people friendly.
They actually feature dogs on their Instagram, which is super cute.
Yeah, and so he made some video clips while we were there, and he put them all together and made a little movie.
Yeah.
And then posted it before I had a chance to do anything. I'm like, wow, this is pretty great.
And it's interesting that it's a general store, older building, and it's at a crossroads, and there's crossing water right there because we had to cross a street to go see one of the other stores.
Just like got water on both sides.
Yeah, that's weird.
So
it
was a fun time. I enjoyed it. It was more exciting than I thought it was going to be. I thought it was just going to be us just taking a ride to mountains like we do occasionally, but no, it's like, wow, this is fantastic. So there's a video on his Facebook page or their Facebook page for Micaville Outpost, right? Mm-hmm. And it's got Pepper, Paranormal Pepper, and her crew of CreepGeeks doing some investigation stuff. So it was well put together. I like it. It's like, ooh. And we told them that we'd do a podcast and we'd actually talk about it. And that's kind of what we're doing. So we do have links in the show notes so you can kind of check some things out. And we'll put the address and everything. I actually went on Google Maps and made some updates and posted more pictures up there. Yeah. And we're going to add pictures because I have a ton of pictures. It took about 300 pictures accidentally, different angles and such.
Yeah.
So it's bright, colorful, and there's artwork everywhere. That's one of the things I like. The Brown Mountain Lights, there's a nice light and sort of art installation. Looks like it's a big sort of wooden picture of the Brown Mountain Lights.
Yeah.
Like almost like a mural, but it's on wood. I don't know what you call it. But it has lights, and it shows where you can see the lights. I thought it was super, super neat.
And my favorite.
Skeletons on bicycles. And
my favorite was in the very back up at the top of the store. You look up, and there's a shadow person eating a moon pie. Yeah. It's the best thing ever. It's my favorite.
And there's also maps to lay out where cryptids, where you can find cryptids and what different types are.
Yeah.
And it's a nice, clean, well put together place. Yeah. I thought it was great. I had a good time in there. Like you can go in there and definitely spend some money. Probably wouldn't hurt. I didn't even get a moon pie. I don't know why I didn't. I was standing right next to that doll case with the camera going bad. And I didn't buy a moon pie.
They were featuring the lemon ones. I'm not sure.
I like the lemon ones. You should have gone out of your way to say they have lemon, banana, and chocolate.
I didn't.
I like them all.
Oh.
Like I like the lemon ones. Oh man! See, now we have to go back.
Well, you stood there and talked at the register for a while, and they have moon pie lip balm.
I was on a mission. It went from being I was just going to buy a sticker, to let me pull out it's because something told me to bring the meter, so I brought the EMF. I got a tri-field meter.
Yeah.
And I didn't think to do it, but to record audio. But yeah, something said bring your stuff, so I did. As far as putting out a video goes, I do have a long video to do, but it's entirely possible we may have to go back and redo it because I didn't pay attention to all the greatest hits of the 70s and 80s, like
playing in
good
the background.
copyright music. Yeah, because of bands that are super famous, they will hit you for copyright for sure, right? Because they got people.
Yeah.
So we'll have to see how it goes. Lots of stickers, lots of knick-knack stuff. If you're at all interested in oddities and curiosities and local lore and want to learn, especially about some of the interesting local lore. One of the things I remember that he said that really sort of stuck with me, right, was about the embalming. Where, you would die, and back in the olden days, and especially up in rural areas like in Appalachia, whether it's Kentucky or North Carolina or whatever, a lot of times they laid you out on a kitchen table, and the embalmer would come, right?
Yeah.
And do the embalming,
Yeah.
And it never occurred to me what happened with the remains, the things that were taken. Mm-hmm. And so be, put in jars and buried.
Yeah.
and how people have unearthed jars of what's effectively, guts.
And that's a big thing around here. It's like collecting old jars and bottles, just like going out into the woods and digging up trash heaps. And now I'm like,
find the bottle from the 1800s, but now you might find a mason jar full of remains.
oh man.
And that never occurred to me. I don't know why. It's like, oh wow, can you imagine buying like an old farmhouse and digging around and finding jars of guts?
Now I can imagine.
Yeah, well, it's like it unlocked a new fear for me. Be careful where you dig, because you don't have to worry about power lines and misutility. You don't have to worry about, Uncle Josiah's guts in a jar.
Oh gosh.
Yeah. Yeah, and he goes on, and he gave us the tour, man, and I super appreciated it. I was like, oh, this is very sweet. I do like a lot of the furniture, like the display case and stuff like that is really old.
I know.
Like, ooh.
Well, that's actually a thanks to, him and his art curator who we've met. I'm looking at a picture. I'm like, we have met this person at CryptidCon.
Yeah.
So,
So yeah, we're moving back into talking about Micaville for a minute because,
yeah.
well, I was sitting there and I'm like, I meant to put the audio clip up, and I've been working on the video, and for today I did a bunch of doctor's appointments and stuff, and I didn't get to it. And I was like, man, I should play that, and I forgot that I'd edited even more, so where I thought the clip was not, but it's there now. So yeah, man, go see Noah, check it out. I should just go. I enjoyed it. Yeah, and you really got to stop and look.
And see,
there's a big Thunderbird on the wall in the back in the corner. Did you see that?
Yeah.
Yeah, just stop and just take a second and look around, and you'll see art everywhere.
And it's a very carefully curated store.
Yeah.
I mean, not just the art and the museum, but there's things in there that have been carefully selected as stuff for this particular outpost type store. It's a great store. Greg spent most of the time interviewing and learning things, and I spent a lot of my time going, I want to buy this. I want to buy this. I want to buy this.
Yes.
So yeah.
It's good time, good store.
Yeah.
I could totally would do a ghost investigation in there for sure.
Yeah.
Like completely all into it. And so really interesting stories. As a couple could be haunted dolls in there. One of them was goofing with my camera, and the other one was just giving me the creepy side eye the whole time.
Yeah.
And the doll is a Howdy Doody doll, but that's the doll. Oh, see, I don't want to give away. There's a ton of things to go look at. The Curiosities cabinet has lots of interesting things in there. Shrunken heads and, murder weapon or two. The Micaville toaster I thought was really interesting.
Yeah.
So it was a fun time. So if you're up and around the Blue Ridge Parkway and you're around Spruce Pine and Linville and all those places, go to Micaville. Go to the Outpost. Park at the church. It's pet friendly. You're there anyway. The bathroom's really cool. There's lots of stuff to look at in the bathroom. I was in there for a minute. It's like, ooh, there's nice maps to check out, different cryptids for different regions of the country.
Yeah.
So it was fantastic. We do have a link to their Facebook page and Instagram, including the video with Pepper in it.
Yeah.
Which basically says the CreepGeeks Podcast crew dropped by to explore the store with Pepper, their paranormal detective Pooch. And so it was pretty slick. Yeah. So we're glad to kind of hooked up with them and kind of see what's going on. So I do think that we'll be dealing with Micaville Outposts in a good, positive way in the future for sure. Because I don't mind going up that way.
Yeah.
We go up that way more often than you'd think. So it doesn't hurt to swing by and grab a delicious soda and, chat a little bit. Because I'm interested in some of the more obscure lore of that particular area. It's pretty cool. We dropped off a couple Fate magazines. So if Fate magazine's listening, we dropped off some magazines up there. So
Yeah.
because it's a perfect place for it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, the wheelchair was crazy. Broughton Hospital is the psychiatric mental asylum type hospital. Section is haunted. It's pretty well known in North Carolina. That place is kind of creepy. There was the baby carriage, the casket, the clothing items that were pulled out of the river. It looked like somebody had been shot in them.
Murder
Murder clothes.
Yeah.
It's fantastic, man. It's great. and refreshing. So, yeah, it was a good time.
Yeah.
So, what do you think about that?
Cool. I want to go back.
Yes. Well, we're not done yet, so stick around. We got more to talk about. I was going to play a commercial, but I'm not.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. You want me to play one? I can play one. Let me see what happens when I press this button.
Are you looking to start a podcast? Then see this episode's show notes for our unique promo code to get up to 2 months of free podcasting service with Libsyn when you sign up for a new account. Get your show on Apple and Spotify. Get helpful audience building stats and all the support you need to sound your best. They can even do video. Bring your podcast to life and have your voice heard here, there, and everywhere with Libsyn. Again, see our show notes for our unique Libsyn promo code and get podcasting.
And we're back. So evidently somebody took a shot at Trump, former President Trump. Little assassination attempt.
Yeah.
So my thoughts and feelings are pretty simple. If you think it's okay to shoot somebody who may or may not be the upcoming president, who was the president, I just think that's wrong. We shouldn't be third world and be assassinating people. We've done it in the past. We don't have a really good history not doing it.
Yeah.
I mean, think about it. Lincoln, shot. Kennedy's, shot. Right? I think we're better than that.
Yeah.
But whatever side you lean to, left, right, center, whatever, we shouldn't be taking shots at people like that. We're above that. And then when you got people like, oh, they missed, they should do it again. And if you're advocating violence and stuff, you're every bit of the reason that there's a problem with this country to begin with. You know? I don't want our politicians being shot. They should be removed from office. Term limits should be set. I mean, there's ways to fix issues. We shouldn't be advocating violence because that kind of stuff is what keeps people from voting. And in third world countries, people die and have died just for the right to be able to vote. And here we are doing stuff like this. And I just think it's kind of unacceptable. I think we just need to do better as a whole, because stuff's expensive, and I'm tired of it being expensive. It is. It's crazy expensive.
No,
it's
I
like,
agree.
why does my escrow payment just get so big? You know, it's like, holy moly, why are you so large right now? It's a thing. So. But there are lots of conspiracies that seem to be swirling around, and some of them are pretty interesting. And it's entirely possible in the past 5 days some of them have changed, right?
Yeah.
Some conspiracy theories, false claims, and unsupported assertions exploded online, especially on Saturday after the assassination attempt in Pennsylvania, right?
Yeah.
So here's some of these theories. So wild theories about the attack, ranging from speculation about who the shooter was to claims about whether or not the incident was planned. Mm-hmm. Right? It's got like millions of views on social media. Now the new one that I was seeing last night, the big thing is the water tower.
Yeah.
How come they blacked out the water tower and you couldn't see it in the clips that they were showing? So are they really trying to spin up maybe a second shooter type scenario? Why did it take 3 minutes from the time that they seen that one guy on the roof to take him out? Stuff like that, man.
Yeah.
And then also how horrible the Secret Service's performance was. You know, evidently there's a lot of people that say they did not do a good job. They should have whisked him off the stage. They should have handled it differently, all sorts of things.
Yeah.
Another theory is that it's kind of a contrived thing. Like, how come the people didn't react? And they should, it's like, where are you supposed to go? You're packed in there, all sorts of just. Another one is that JFK Jr. was in the audience. He's that weird looking dude that's sitting off to the left as you're looking forward to the stage. So, and there's, of course, depending on where you're reading information, depending on what type of theories.
Slant or angle of the theory.
Yeah, to the obscure, from the obscure to the obtuse. Right?
Yeah. But then, these theories take like a really drastic
staged.
turn
It's all staged.
and have consequences, especially when it comes to like there are some theories about it being staged, and then, the water tower and the second gunman thing. These theories go out and, let's just say they blame a prominent Antifa activist like Micaville.
It's Antifa. It's not Antifa.
Okay. All right. Just train wreck me.
Okay.
I mean, so, but basically, this person that was identified or possibly identified through these conspiracy theories is somebody named Mark Violets, which basically resulted in, this popular Twitter guy who, his name was Marco Violi, which he's an Italian YouTuber.
They're like, close enough.
Yeah, pretty
That's
much.
close
He's an Italian YouTuber who vlogs about football, right?
Yeah.
Well, so people started going after him. He had to basically shut down his account at some point because it was just all people started thinking that I was this Mark Violets, but it's all fake news, And he kept saying,
So just dogpiling on the wrong guy.
I strongly deny being involved in this situation. I was awake in the middle of night, 2 a.m. in Italy, to be precise, from the many notifications I received on Instagram and X.
Yeah, so
I'm in Italy. I'm in Rome. I have no idea what's happened.
This stuff's blowing up.
Yeah, but
and not for the reasons. So.
yeah, but there's consequences to some of these conspiracy theories.
There's people that were making some comments, and I'm sure their employers are not happy because it means okay. I don't know if people are aware, but hey, your social media account can affect your job employment. Mm-hmm. Because whether you like it or not, with some companies, they look at you as being a reflection of them, and they don't want your violent statements or your idiotic statements. And there was people posting comments from their place of employment. It's like, that's about the best way to get totally, completely fired right out of the gate.
Oh, that's a new one.
That's a dumb move right there.
We all, as a society, American culture at least, have started to really push back against brands and companies who try to take on certain missives, whether it's like a social movement or political movement. But in the past few days, we've had several brands respond to this situation and facing backlash from it. And it's just, it's almost comical watching the effect or the consequence or the washout from this. I mean, you have some brands who are feeling a certain way. You have some brands who are feeling very defensive of the situation. And then you have brands who are like, hey, kind of like what Greg and I are saying, we should be above doing something like this as a people, as a culture. And people are lashing out against them.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. It just bugs me.
I think we should be better than that, and evidently we're just not.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's still, regardless, I still enjoy the USA. I think it's probably about the best place to be in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah.
So, kind of is what it is. So moving back into the podcast in a different spot, I want to talk a little bit about some paranormal stuff because we started talking about a Micaville Outpost and we did a little bit about a Trump thing. But I do want to talk about some paranormal stuff because we're going to talk about a Norwegian princess and a former NASCAR driver and what they believe happened in the paranormal, right? Mm-hmm. But you know how we stayed up late for, 15 years because we were night owls? I found a study that justifies what we all know about night owls.
Okay.
They're smarter than regular day people. What do you think about that?
As I sit here about to fall asleep.
Yes, that's kind of what I want to know. So night owls have better cognitive function, and it's superior to early risers.
Okay.
From this recent study off The Guardian. It's under neuroscience, right? And so the idea that night owls who don't go to bed until early in the hours, right, and struggle to get anything done during the day may need to be revised. It turns out that staying up late could be good for our brain power, and research is suggesting that people who identify as night owls could be sharper than those who go to bed early. Yeah, so this research was done at the Imperial College of London, right? Or Imperial College London. And they studied data from the UK Biobank study. Mm-hmm. And they used about 26,000 people. And they all completed intelligence, reasoning, and reaction time, along with memory tests. And then they examined how the participants' sleep duration, quality, chronotype, which is like if you're a night person or a day person,
Yeah.
And that's basically how alert and productive you feel and what time you feel alert and productive. That's what their research was based there. And they also found out that those who stay up late, right, and those classified as intermediate had superior cognitive function, while the morning larks had the lowest scores. So going to bed late is strongly associated with creative types, artists, authors, musicians. Mm-hmm. And a lot of those are known to be sort of like night owls, right? And they include some examples of night owls like James Joyce, Kanye West, Lady Gaga. So I'm like, okay, right. But while that happened, and they're doing a comparison for night owls, politicians like Margaret Thatcher, Winston Churchill, Barack Obama famously seem to thrive on little sleep, and that the sleep duration is important for brain function, like we all know. And they basically say getting between 7 to 9 hours of shut-eye each night will help you perform the best in your cognitive tests. I have never been able to sleep 9 hours unless I'm sick. Like, I'm lucky if I get 5. A lot of times it's just for 4.5. You know, when I get 6, I feel like I'm getting away with something.
As long as everything goes right, I get that 9 hours of sleep on Friday, and that's it. And it makes me so frustrated because I chase that good sleep the whole rest of the weekend, don't get it. And then on Sunday, I'm like, I have to go to work tomorrow. Yeah. I do well after being well rested, but I'm not getting that well restedness. So,
not me.
And I don't know. It's weird. I felt most productive when I had that one weird schedule in New Mexico where I basically was working from like 6 to 2:30 or 7 to 4, I think. It was something weird, but it was super early in the morning. And because the place was so far away, I had to wake up early and go out there. And it gave me the rest of the afternoon to be brilliant.
Nice.
You know?
So by the time you left work, then you're alive and ready to go.
Barely. I think Albuquerque traffic is what kept me alive. Just like, oh my gosh, this is terrifying. Yeah. I've never been so scared before.
I'm so scared right now. Yeah.
Yeah. But, I mean,
I've never really been too scared driving around Albuquerque. There just seems to be more instances of a pet peeve that occurs that I have.
Yeah.
Don't pace me.
Yeah.
Don't pace me, bro. Don't get up right beside me and hang out. Either pass me. Like, why are you sitting right next to me? You know, what are we trying to do here? We're not going to the same place. It's the same as when you're in a bathroom and there's like 8 stalls and you're in one down at far end or whatever. There's no reason if you have like 8 other empty stalls for you to get right next to me. So why would you just hang out next to me on the highway?
See, you never had like the early morning shifts where I got to sit in traffic because a herd of horses has blocked I-25, or the people who...
Well, it's better than people gluing themselves to the sidewalk because of eco.
But not as good as, I'm just going to stop my car, put it in park, and walk away on I-40.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's happened a couple times. One time, 3 of us left work and we're kind of racing because we all went the same way, and I almost blasted that dude or whoever it was that just left their car parked in the middle of the road. Like, I almost blasted him at like 45 miles an hour. It was terrible. Absolutely scary. So, speaking of scary, it's not really scary for you, the listener, but it's more scary just in general as sort of a segue. So I come across this, and I figured I'd put it in here and talk about it just a little bit. Norwegian princess is haunted by a dead Nazi general that she calls the staring man.
That's terrifying.
It is terrifying, right? So I was like, whoa. It's like the staring man. I mean, I don't know what's worse. Scary stuff. I mean, can you imagine just waking up and just seeing some old geezer just staring at you? That would freak me out.
I mean, I want to say new hat man just dropped. It's like
just staring man. So this is Princess Martha Louise, and she's a Norwegian princess, and she believes she's haunted by the ghost of a Nazi general. So she's the daughter of Norway's king, Harold, and she touches on the terrible tales from her nights where she's frightened by a staring man. So she told, she told a modern royalty podcast, when I moved into this room, I became terribly afraid of the dark, and there was a man staring at me. Right. And so she told everybody, her nannies, parents, and they all look behind the curtains and they pull them back. It looks like, see, there's nobody there. And then she revealed it when she discussed her ordeal with her father. He claimed, "Oh, that's the room where the Nazi general took his own life."
Thanks, Dad.
It's like, oh, we put you in the suicide killing room, right? That kind of thing. So, yeah. And evidently, the Nazi general was General Wilhelm Riedis, who famously took his life shooting himself in the bedroom. And it's like, well, what?
And she's like, it's only now that you're telling me about this to her dad. Yeah.
And she's fourth in line to the Norway throne.
Huh.
So, yeah. Fun. I've been to Norway. And I'll be honest, I didn't even know that they had kings and princesses and stuff in Norway. It made sense after I got there. I'm like, oh, yeah, that's right. But, yeah, that's kind of crazy. And, a lot of royalty, like, you wouldn't hear that, I think, from the British royals. They wouldn't say things like that because they want to keep some kind of view. They have enough problems going on, but they want to keep some kind of, whatever. And she's like, yeah, and old dead Nazi general is staring, man. But that's awful, man. Yeah. Can you imagine waking up in the middle of the night and just somebody just staring at you? Just some dude, not just a shadow figure, would be kind of scary, right? But just a person just staring at you. Probably all eyes, all bug-eyed and stuff. That's creepy. I don't like that.
No.
Yeah. But I thought this was kind of funny. So former NASCAR driver Danica Patrick, she's got some controversial thoughts.
Okay.
And it's not so much paranormal as it's just more conspiracy thoughts. And this is basically her thoughts on chemtrails. So, and she's generated some sort of tacit ideas about some things that's been lending her support to some of these weird theories that are out there.
Including coming under fire recently for promoting the existence of lizard people.
We all know lizard people are real.
So, yeah, the 42-year-old is also the most successful woman in open-wheel car racing and is the only woman to have won an IndyCar Series race. Patrick has recently demonstrated tacit support for various conspiracy theories, including the existence of lizard people, in a podcast titled How to Spot Reptilian Shapeshifters. Oh. Furthermore, in an interview with Tucker Carlson, she indulged in the chemtrail conspiracy, where theorists believe that the long-lasting condensation trails left in the sky by high-flying aircraft are actually chemtrails, which are trails consisting of chemical or biologic agents sprayed for nefarious purposes without the knowledge of the general public.
Well, I still think chemtrails are basically them seeding us so that we don't taste as good to the aliens.
It's one thing for people to be able to live how they want to live and operate. It's another thing when what you're doing is now finally affecting me, Patrick said. For me, it's you can't say what you want to say anymore. You get in trouble for having an opinion. I got in trouble for going to AmFest and saying I love this country. People were like, I hate you, you're awful, unfollow. And, it's getting to the point where, and I kind of, agree with her on this. Yeah. You get to the point where you can't say I love this country, but also she has some ideas that are a little bit out there. So it's like, how do I put this? You can be crazy and love this country. You can be sane and love this country. You can be
a flat earther and like the country. You can be anything you want. There's nothing wrong with being proud of your country or enjoying it. I used to say that if I was going to live somewhere outside the U.S., this is about 10 years ago, I would say Canada. Yeah. And then the third would be somewhere in the UK.
Okay.
Now, I don't know. I don't know about Canada because Canada's got their own sort of rights issues, as in the rights been sort of taken away. But England and the UK in general has always been a nanny state. They're in your business. So they're more like, to me, a HOA country. You know what HOAs are, right? They're a community of people in your neighborhood, your community, whatever, that enacts rules and stuff like that. Flower pot can't be on your front porch. That sort of thing. Outside of that, I really don't know where I would go. Because I've journeyed all over the world and seen lots of places. So it would probably have to be somewhere in South America, probably. Outside of that. So, I've spent time in Canada. I spent time in England. I spent time in Egypt and places like that. Russia, I would never want to live there. You know, the Bahamas is great, but I wouldn't want to live there because they get blasted by hurricanes. You know, Curacao was interesting, but I wouldn't want to live there. You know, just in general, just different places I've been. So, but yeah, it'd probably either be in Europe or Canada. I think if I was going to pick somewhere else to be, if I had to. Otherwise, I'm hanging out here. I don't mind our country. I've seen how it compares to some of the other awful third world countries, and what gets done. At least here, you know, your opportunity is yours to make. Whether you do something with it or not, that's kind of on you, but kind of is what it is. So yeah, she kind of comes across as being a little nut jobby with some things. That's how people see her, right? When it comes to stuff like this.
Yeah. So
I think she'd have an audience with people who have sort of like-minded interests just in general. Like she could probably go to like paranormal conventions and stuff and just talk about what she thinks, and people would go see it.
Yeah.
But the problem is that there's a lot of people in the U.S. just in general who don't care about open-wheeled racing, like F1 and, you know, IndyCar racing and stuff like that. Which I think F1's pretty interesting to me. So I don't know. But yeah, you shouldn't be blasted for liking the country. You shouldn't be blasted for whatever you believe in necessarily, as long as, you know, you don't make harm out of it, I guess. I don't know. There's a lot of people out there that are way more stupid than we are trying to fix things. So we'll have to see what happens. You know what I mean? You thought I was going to say smarter, right? So yeah, that's about all I'm going to talk about, I think, in this particular podcast episode. Okay. We do have lots of stuff coming up. We're putting out and going to be putting out for Micaville Outpost. You should go check out all their socials. You should check out the video with Pepper.
Yeah.
It was a great little video. I'm like, oh, that's pretty nice. I like that. You know, got about 300 pictures to go through. I'm still editing this video. The video is about 24 minutes long so far. But I don't know where I'm going to post it because it has lots of, you know, you ever done something you're like, well, we're going to go back and do better? I kind of want to do that.
I try to work with what I got, which is why a lot of my content
but,
has music over top of it.
Yeah, but I already have music in it. And I guess what it is I didn't realize they were going to be so welcoming.
Yeah.
You know, Noah giving us tour and all that stuff. Otherwise, I would have like mic'd them up and stuff. And, hey, can we turn this down just a touch so don't get popped for copyright? You know, our wildly unsuccessful podcast, we have a couple hundred people listening. You never know when somebody wants to turn you in. There's copyright. It's all automated, man. I got a video I made copyrighted for rain. I was recorded rain because it was like pretty heavy downpour. And, you know, the algorithm from one of these companies that thinks that they own everything, and they'll just copyright and do a copyright strike against you. And if you don't complain, they get the money. And then when you complain, they drop the copyright claim. It's a scam. They're like, nope, that's our rain. I'm like, absolutely not. Take my rain. It was wrong.
Okay.
Want to hear some of that techno music?
So anyway, this has been the CreepGeeks Podcast, episode 315, season 8, the Ocho. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, let us know. But that's about all I got for you.
Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. Be sure to follow us on social. Our Facebook group is pretty active, so join up, share some ideas, share some memes, share some show suggestions. And if you have any cool places you want us to visit, recommend those too.
Yeah. And I forgot what I was going to say.
Okay.
That must not have been important. But yeah, we do have some stuff over on our Patreon, so you should definitely check it out. And we do appreciate all of our patrons and our new patrons as well. Good to see you. So I'm going to be data dumping all that stuff over there. It's going to be good. So anyway, there you go. Are you okay?
I'm very tired.
I'm not. I'm a night owl.
Good night.
Yeah, you know what that means. All right, see you later. Take it easy. Bye, Sickle.
Bye.